Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick here for this week's matchup show with co-host Frazier Tafar. Frazier, how you doing?
Doing good, Ken. Excited for this big game in LA. Coming off a huge division win against Cincinnati and seeing how we can follow up against this matchup.
Exciting Monday night news. We're recording this on Tuesday this week, but exciting Monday night news that the Chiefs got beat. Mm-hmm. That is one of probably 3 losses they're going to need to give the Ravens, to leave the door open for the Ravens to get the number 1 seed. They could technically do it with just one more loss for the Chiefs, but I think more than likely it's going to take 2. But still, nonetheless, exciting to see the Chiefs stumble a little bit.
Yep, definitely excited to see that. I think we just need to keep the foot on the pedal. We have control of our own destiny. Just need to capitalize on this opportunity.
Yeah, it's a funny thing is we actually don't have control of our own destiny, even in the AFC North. The Browns have control of their destiny. If they win out, they win the division. So I don't think it's going to happen, but they do not have control of their destiny. So one of those things. All right, well, let's look ahead to this Chargers matchup. We'll start on the defensive side of the ball. You want to do that first?
Yeah, let's go with the defense. My matchup is Keenan Allen versus the Ravens slot DBs. I expect to see Kyle travel with him in the slot. I don't really trust Mollett to be the guy to go against their number 1 guy pretty much. So the main thing for me is getting a big body like Kyle Hamilton on him just to disrupt timing with Herbert, because Herbert's someone that likes to be on schedule, and when he holds the ball too much, he's known to get sacked. He can make the play, but he's known to have the pocket collapse around him, especially with the mediocre offensive line he has this year. It's going to be crucial that we can take away Allen and force them to beat us with Eckler or Johnson.
Allen, kind of your prototypical 6'2", 210 wide receiver, so your bigger bodied guy, definitely not the kind of speedster that he once was. So this is I think it's an excellent matchup for the Ravens to get Hamilton on him. It's almost like a tight end. What Allen can do as a blocker to help in the run game, and what the Chargers present in the run game can largely be impacted, or can be impacted, let's say largely, by the fact that Hamilton is up front and give you another big body to play well against the run. I like the notion of disrupting is a very good one for this game. It's a very weak offensive line, which is what I want to talk about in my matchup side, is how the Ravens should use a mix of pass rush techniques and deception to overwhelm what is a very poor offensive line. The left tackle Slater, who's the number 1 draft pick from a couple of years ago, has 5 holding flags, and he's by far their best lineman. But the other guys, I want to go across these guys because they were recent, very highly plugged draft prospects, most of whom did not work out. But here they are. The left guard is Zion Johnson, the 17th overall pick from 2022. He's really been bad, both as a pass and run blocker, despite playing next to Slater. So you think that would help. And he also started the season playing next to Corey Linsley, who was a good center they had to start the season. So they had a couple offensive line positions taken care of. And then they had the big injury to Linsley, and he's been replaced by Will Clapp, who is the definition of a replacement level. That's a big drop off.
Yeah, I think it's tough to see that kind of situation happen to a guy like Justin Herbert. He has a lot of talent, and it just hasn't been there at an organizational level for him as a quarterback. So to see his whole left side almost get decimated at one point is kind of tough.
Yeah, the Jamari Slater is a right guard. A lot of people remember him from the 2022 draft at right guard at Georgia, and I think he was actually a tackle. He might have played left tackle, might have played right tackle. I'm having trouble remembering exactly where he played at Georgia, but he's been converted to guard in the NFL, as a lot of people thought that would happen. And he's played almost every snap for 2 years. He just hasn't really improved a lot. He's a little bit better as a pass blocker now, probably, than he was at the very beginning. If you look at PFF scores, that certainly shows that sort of a trend, but definitely not a quick-footed guy. And when you have a guy his size, you'd really want to keep him a tackle if you could. but it's kind of like you turn pitchers into relief pitchers if that's the only thing. Otherwise, you'd like to have starting pitchers. Starting pitchers are more valuable in terms of what you do with them. And the same thing goes with tackles and guards in the NFL. You want to keep your tackles at tackles, and you want to stop fooling yourself with people who are guard, tackle, swing people when it really means they can play guard okay and they can play tackle terribly.
Yeah, and I think the Ravens need to figure that out a couple times, especially with Falele and Salah coming up.
Yeah, that's good examples that they're already switching Falele inside. Hopefully that's not a permanent move. Hopefully we see some return on that pick. But that was definitely a gamble of a pick. People talk about lottery tickets and whatnot. I say that's not the way to look at it. You look at it as World Series of Poker entries, and EDC is going to be much better with his entry than I'm going to be with mine that I'm just buying in on. So it's only natural that that guy, that Falele, I should say, you would hope that we get some good review of a player who the Ravens have scouted well enough to know that he's of more value than his draft draft. Did seem like a value at the time. A lot of people had Falele going higher in the draft, but it just hasn't worked out that way so far.
I think it's just his aggressiveness that might be the missing key. I think he has all the
lack
physical.
of it.
Yeah. He needs to get that mean machine in him, because I think that's the last piece for him, for real.
Yeah, he's a patty cake player, and a guy his size not striking is very frustrating. It's just extremely frustrating to watch, and he needs to definitely learn how to strike. Probably needs to go to an offensive line school in the off season to really put some time in on that, because his career is on the line next year.
Yeah.
If he doesn't really play well, he may stick around and hang around on practice squads for through about 6 years in the NFL, but he's never going to make any real money. If he wants to make some real money, he's going to really have to improve significantly. I want to go to the last spot on the offensive line for the Chargers, though, which is the right tackle Trey Pipkins. He's been a turnstile as a pass rusher, been penalized 6 times, including 3 holding flags and an IDP. The reason I mention those are post-snap penalties. They're worse in terms of giving the defense the option. Giving the defense the option of taking the play or not. So you really, while false starts are bad, they're not quite as bad as a 5-yard post-snap penalty. So Ravens got some target practice to go on this line, and they've certainly got a good quarterback they're facing in Herbert, but lots of options in terms of how you approach the pass rush in this game. And I really hope the Ravens will keep up with some of the deceptive elements that have worked so well for them.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anyone that's going to have a big game. I think it's going to be contribution across the board. You kind of just spelled out everyone across the offensive line. The only strong suit they really have is their left tackle, and that might be Van Noy or Oweh's assignment. But whoever's on that side, I think they're going to do well. But it leaves everyone else, Matabike, Pierce, and Clowney, to disrupt on the right side from left guard over.
Yeah.
So
you make a good point, by the way, that Oweh going up against Slater is a really good length matchup for the Ravens, and a really good litmus test for what Oweh can do to a short arm tackle. Really love to see him continue on the kind of streak he's been on of being very disruptive right at the line of scrimmage and beating the man opposite him. But he would typically be the rush linebacker, which is on the naked tackle side. Again, with the Chargers, it would typically be that left side.
And I really like how Odafe is playing, especially after he came back from injury. When he started the season against Houston, he looked on fire. I mean, he looked very good. Now he's looking good with speed, and on top of that, more polished with the pass rush moves, getting in very seamlessly almost. So now it's time for him to even take another step forward when we have more intense matchups coming up against the Jaguars, Niners, and Dolphins. We're going to need him to almost put it all together coming soon.
Looking forward to that, obviously. That I had a post on Twitter in terms of the most likely ways that the Ravens can make the playoffs. They don't absolutely have to have that 49ers game, which is a good break, I guess I'd say. But the 2 games they absolutely need to have in order to make sure they get no worse than the 2 seed are the Miami game and the Jacksonville game. They have to get those head-to-head wins set up. And then they need a few other things to happen. They need the Browns to lose 2 ball games. They need Pittsburgh to win 1 ball game if the Ravens can win 5 out of 6. And then they need the Chiefs to lose 2 ball games, which is not out of the question, certainly, even though they have a fairly easy slate for the last 7.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this last half of the season.
All right. Move over to the offensive side of the ball. What do you want to see?
On offense, I do want to see, with Bosa out, can the Ravens establish play action pass? So specifically, I expect them to run the ball effectively against the Chargers. They can really key in on Mac and make sure they make him the point of impact on the runs. And I expect Mitchell to have a really good game. Watching the Green Bay game, they ran a sweep with their number 11, and he took the angle, and it seemed like nobody on the Chargers could catch him. So I'm expecting Mitchell to have the same kind of game, going lateral and vertical, making sure that he can stretch the defense, because this team is not fast sideline to sideline.
I do think of Khalil Mack as being a pretty good edge setter in addition to a pretty good pass rusher. Are you expecting he's their number 1 guy now with Bosa out, obviously. I don't know that I have not heard officially that Bosa is not going to play against the Ravens, but being carted off with a foot injury and crying is generally not a good sign for the next week. It's not like they don't have any other pass rushers. They have a little bit more, but I would think that they would really give some attention to Mac. And I think particularly missing his partner on the other side, that he's a little bit less likely to take some of the Myles Garrett chances. And I want to get into that in my item, which is really taking advantage of a very weak secondary. So it's a case where Mac will have more responsibilities, I think, at the line of scrimmage. I hope the Ravens will find a way to take care of him, obviously. But I wonder how much attention they really need to give him, given all of the things they need to try and defend in this game.
I think the Ravens are going to kind of continue with their game plan, what they do against elite pass rushers, just try and run the ball at them. Especially with the confusion on Lamar's give and fake on that counter, on the GT counter that I always like to bring up. I think those plays are effective against aggressive D ends. So when we have those things going for us, especially with Mitchell and his speed, you bring in a guy like Gus, I think the defense is almost going to expect us to run every time with Gus in the game. And when we kind of give them that little curveball or changeup and we go play action with Gus in the backfield, I think that even gives us more an advantage, because they don't know who's going to be the guy we trust in pass pro, in the sense of Keaton's running the ball well, but he's also a good speed threat out of the backfield. So he's always reliable in pass. But Gus is always considered the running back that we go to on running downs. So when he's out there in pass pro, it just makes more confusion for the defense, giving us the opportunity to beat those linebackers when they come up on the play action, especially because this year I haven't seen that much turn your back to the field play action.
Right. I was just going to ask about that. Ask about it. Yep.
That's exactly what I want to see this game. I want to see these linebackers take too many false steps forward and let us get either Aguilar or Beckham across the middle.
Well, let's see that, because Mark Andrews, obviously the missing man right now. So it'll be really interesting to see how they establish a play action game without him. Yep. Whether Likely is the guy, whether they, have Kolar be the guy whether it's Beckham, whether it's even Bateman on some of these plays. I think that's, there's lots of good choices. One of the things, if folks remember back to the 2018 playoff loss to the Chargers, was the Chargers absolutely packing their defense with defensive backs. In fact, they played quarter defense on something like all but one of the snaps. That frustrated Jackson. Jackson, obviously was facing a lot of zone defense, and he hadn't matured as a passer yet into his 2019 form. So he was not as deadly in that regard. And they were all over the field anticipating where he would be. And they, in addition to that, they really won the game at the line of scrimmage with their front four, just manhandling who the Ravens had out there. And that was very frustrating. I will say this Los Angeles Chargers team is not built to do that to the Ravens. They've a lot of weakness in the secondary. The team is allowing 7.1 net yards per pass play, which doesn't seem that bad, but a 99.3 passer rating. And when you look at the individual DBs, they're very, very weak across the board. So Asante Samuel Jr. is having a terrible year with 9.7 yards per target. Taylor is at 7.0. He's the best of them. Davis at 7.5. Derwin James, 9.9 yards per target this year. Wow. That's a disaster. And here's the big one. When you're free safety, and this is it's like Aloha Gilman, but it's not exactly that. I always get it wrong, Aliho or whatever it is. He's allowed 11.9 yards per target this year. So he's been a big negative in terms of coverage. I don't understand exactly. He has a very good PFF coverage grade on him, but it doesn't mesh with the results at all for me in terms of what he's done. So, I think there'll be a lot of scheme to deal with Mac in terms of either ball out quick or to block Mac with an extra eligible receiver to make some time for Lamar. But I think that'll be the interesting matchup. They have got to test a very weak secondary and test them frequently.
Yeah, now that you're bringing up those stats about the safeties, Derwin James kind of having an off in coverage is kind of surprising. It'd be kind of great to see what Andrews would do against him this year, but unfortunately that won't be the case. I do want to see Kohler take a step forward. I think he had a very disappointing first half of the season, especially after that big drop that he had in the first game. I think he lost all opportunity after that. And last week he did get a good opportunity to make a first down, but he needs to continue to build off that. Likely needs to take a step up. I think he has the ability. I think he just needs to put it all together like a lot of the guys we have on the team. Mm-hmm. Just stay focused and not, there's a lot of lag with Likely, and he needs to clean that up. All
right. Let's looking forward to this game. The Ravens 4-point favorites as it stands right now. We'll have fun out there. I hope. In terms of going to this game, our first trip ever to SoFi, so I'm really excited about that. But anyway, we're looking forward to this one. And I think Ravens fans should as well. Frazier, why don't you tell folks where they can talk football with you online?
You guys can find me at Twitter/X at F_RAVE8. That's F_Rave8.
All right, outstanding. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a Film Study short, hit me up with a DM on Twitter. They're always open. I want to talk to you and hear your idea. Try and boil it down to something we can talk about in 15 to 20 minutes would be ideal. So would love to hear from you. I've had some great ideas coming in, and we've got the half bye week and the bye week right now upon us, and it's a great chance to record additional content that we wouldn't necessarily have time for at other times during the year. For Frazier Tafar, this is Ken McCusick saying goodbye, and we'll talk to you next week on Matchups. All right, outstanding, Frazier. Good job.
Recording.
Do you work with a company from the East where you're
still recording?